Welcome to the TOCA Backstage Podcast. Join TOCA's Executive Director, Chris Wolf, in conversations with the artists and people behind the scenes of the Torrance Cultural Arts Foundation's performances and events.
Welcome to another edition of TOCA Backstage. This is Chris Wolf, the Executive Director of the Torrance Cultural Arts Foundation. Forgive me, I'm getting over a cold. It is my extreme honor to be talking with Kymberly Harris, the director of the show that it will be at the Marilyn Monroe Theater in LA. The show is called The Effect. Kymberly, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
So for those who actually do watch this or listen to this, we usually do interviews with artists or people involved in shows that are happening in Torrance. This is a special occasion because your producers and you have extended a discount to people who are friends of TOCA, which we certainly appreciate, and we hope that people will come out and see it. But I'm really curious. I mean, I've looked at your very extensive, very impressive resume, and I did my little Google on you. You've been busy.
You know, I cannot deny that. I am very interested in my creative work.
Well, I mean, because we'll get to The Effect in a minute, but just you're not only a director of stage, but you produce, direct films, and you're an acting teacher, a very sought after acting teacher, I believe, at the Lee Strasberg. What's your favorite?
Oh gosh, you know what's so beautiful about the moment I find myself in is how everything is feeding everything else. I couldn't even, I differentiate in terms of how I'm offering what I'm offering, but everything is interconnected. So I really love being an active artist and then coming back into the classroom and offering my experience. I think that's been really valuable to me in my education when I was learning from working artists. So they really had their finger on the pulse of what was happening. And I think that should really always stay a priority of mine. It works really well, and it's you know, everything is a collaboration. So even in the classroom, I'm receiving what the young actors are experiencing, and that really does help me in my directing. You know, to really stay in contact with that. I have a huge passion for directing. I'm incredibly interested in filmmaking, which I discovered 5 years ago. And I've been directing theater for, 10 years or more. So I love them all. I don't think I can choose. And I mean, if you put a gun to my head, I probably would, but I'm not going to say which.
Oh, very wise, very wise.
Don't put a gun to my head.
No, please. I would never. So how did you discover your passion for what you do? I mean, I know, like, you talk to some artists or actors or musicians, and it's like there's always that moment where it's just that like aha moment where it's like, this is what I want to do. Did you start off saying, I want to direct or I want to teach? What was your path?
Acting. Everything, I'm an actor first. I started acting when I was 6 years old. And I can't remember a day when I wasn't in a play until really 5 years ago. I acted off Broadway. I, did a lot of independent film and commercials and all that as well. And was always coaching actors, was always directing theater, was always writing theater. But when I put all of the skills together 5 years ago for my first short, Rose's Turn, which was a play that I had written and adapted into a film, when I was on that set, everything that I valued, everything that I loved, everything that I had built sort of had a place to go in one experience. And a light bulb just kind of turned on, and I haven't stopped directing film since. So I thought it was acting. And then when I directed my first film, something else emerged, which is interesting. But I think my core as an actor and my understanding of the actor's needs and the actor's instrument is, where for better or for worse, where my skill set will always lie, because I always enjoy character-driven pieces. I always empathize with the actor. I always value actors' performance, characters' relationships, as sort of the kernel of the story. And I'm sure that comes from me knowing what I needed as an actor.
Well, I'm curious too, how it's interesting, because I mean, I've done some directing as well. Obviously not to the extent that you have, but usually it's like if you read a piece and it's like, oh, this is great, I have visions, I see my sort of turn on it. And then of course you're given a piece saying, here, you have to direct this, and you're like, oh, okay, whatever. How do you pick your pieces? What do you look for in a piece that you say, this is what I have to direct?
Well, it's interesting. The effect came to me. It wasn't one that came through me, as you're talking about. When something, it's a resonance, it's visceral. Usually it speaks to something very personal that I'm deeply interested in understanding, that mirrors some sort of life experience that I find to be truthful. That's really been my taste. The play before this that I directed was Sam Shepard's Fool for Love. We did a bi-coastal production of it, and it was really a reimagining of the play from May's perspective. So that relationship, that dynamic, digging very, very deeply into Sam Shepard's, the autobiographical aspects of that play, really resonating with those dynamics, and then also wanting to see more from the woman's perspective, is what excited me about that project. Mm-hmm. And then if someone brings something to me and I read it, if I'm a little intimidated and I'm a little, full of questions about how to make this work, like with the play that I'm in now, and really admire the writing and the company, I'll say yes. But I say no to a lot, actually.
So you do like to challenge yourself with a given piece. It's not like, it's like it's not like something you've done before and it's like, okay, this I can do, no problem. But you do like something where it comes across and you're like, it makes you stop and think, right?
Yeah, I think for us in theater, you aren't doing it for any other reason besides, really being personally interested in thinking about it and working your way through it and experiencing it. It's not like being offered a $300 million Batman movie or something, right? It's like you're doing it because of the story.
Right.
So but if I think I already know how to do it, I can't do it because I'll be bored. It has to be just a little bit ahead of me, and then I grab it and then I get ahead of it. That's how I work.
I like it. I like that. That's I'm curious too, because you had mentioned about women. It's odd because women, from what I can see within the industry, have really a tough time breaking that ceiling of getting more. I mean, is it getting better opportunities for women in the industry for directing and producing?
I think that's really cool that you can have that observation, because I think we have to be honest about, representation. I mean, we
Yeah.
have to, it's not that any demographic is better or worse than any other, but let's just at least be honest in the first place about, when you're looking for a story, if you see yourself reflected in that story. I mean, theater is, great for that, I think, because but is it getting better? I mean, I have, mentors, women in this industry that I look up to that have been directing for, 30, 40 years, and they would have the real trajectory as a director. As an artist, I think it's really problematic that the women directors whose names are just excellent. Like they're the best of the best of the best, because
Right.
when I go into a meeting, I feel like I have to be so prepared. Just, I no box unchecked. And, I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and she said, she's a producer, and she said that this guy came in and pitched with an idea on a napkin. And we were just laughing and laughing because it wouldn't even occur to me to be, that casual. So I think there's, different expectations on different people, and that we really do need to, realize that all voices are necessary for us to really be experiencing, humanity in art. I mean, I don't just want to see one group in the stories that I witness, that I experience.
Well,
So I don't know. I don't know if it's getting better. I hope so.
well, do you think that it's funny because somebody once handed me a script and said, "Would you do this?" And I read it, and it was a female-based story about women and struggles they go through. And I said, why are you giving me this script? This is something a woman needs to direct. And they're like, oh, I guess you're right. It's like, how could you not even think of that? I mean, at least that's my take on it. I mean, yeah, I'm a storyteller, or, male directors are storytellers, but you can only get so deep if you don't understand the characters from a personal. That's my take on it. But what do I know? I'm
Well, I'm sure you know quite a lot. Yeah, and I have, I don't think that, we can't have insight into, all genders, all races, all cultures. I think, an artist has their own experience that they're, interpreting the scripts through.
Mhm.
But it is really interesting to get a female perspective on a female story. Why not? I mean, there is no reason why not. And maybe it's gone the other way for too long, and we should probably try to at least balance that very simple thing out. Yeah.
So going back to the effect, I mean, I read the little description. What would you say is like the elevator pitch for the effect?
The elevator pitch, that is not my forte, elevator pitches, but it's set in a drug trial for antidepressants, and it is based on a real drug trial that went awry. And that's her setting and her environmental inspiration, and her emotional inspiration was she shares, Lucy Prebble, the playwright, that she was going through a breakup. So the relationships that happen in this trial are quite interesting. And it, on the surface, what it is it's an argument, do antidepressants work for depressed people?
And it was written by Lucy Prebble, who is, it just says HBO's Lucy Prebble. I'm not familiar with HBO, so fill me in on who she is.
Well, right now she's someone who I admire so greatly, even more than I knew. She's a very good writer. She's a writer and EP on the show Succession, which is a brilliant television series that I can't say enough about. That's on HBO. She also did a series called Diary of a Call Girl, and she has written several very great plays, this being one of them.
Awesome. And how the run is from April 29th through May 21st. So you're sort of in the midst of it. How big of a cast is it? Is it just 2 people? Is it multiple cast?
It's 4 people. Yeah, it's 4 people. And 2 of them are doctors running this trial, and 2 of them are patients in the trial. And
do you, I guess going back to your artistic preferences, do you prefer smaller casts versus larger casts?
Yes, I would say I prefer an intimacy to the feeling of the world on stage. Yeah.
And is from your artistic viewpoint, did you sort of lead the whole creation of the environment, or did you have like set designers and costume designers helping you with that?
Yeah, I mean, I had a vision for the environment. The environment is really a character in the piece, because it's this very clinical trial that's happening, and their hearts are being monitored and their brains are being scanned, and it's boop, 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 very ritualistic, robotic. And then underneath it are these people wrestling with depression, and are they depressed? Are they not depressed? Are they in love? Are they not in love? A lot of backstory comes into play. So you've got this 2-tiered world that couldn't be more different than each other. So in some ways, at first, it's almost like directing 2 plays at once, something that feels almost sci-fi, and then something that feels very raw and primal. So how those 2 worlds interconnected informed my vision. And then Paul Rush, who's the artistic director of 66 Theater Company, and also is playing one of the leads in the play, is a wonderful actor. He introduced me to some really good designers. So we have Eli Smith, who helped me execute my vision. And then we have a sound designer, a costume designer, and a lighting designer.
So, and as you mentioned before we started this, that you're now in the throes of Tech Week, and how is that going for you? Is it sleepless nights and worry, or is everything smooth sailing?
So far it's smooth sailing. I'm really enjoying seeing these aspects of, I really grounded that first tier of the actors and the actors' relationships, and now we're putting in all the monitors and different sort of surreal elements that are part of my my interpretation, and it's fun. It's really fun.
and actually that your interpretation reminded me when you said my interpretation. Your little bio says that you like the deeply experimental and process-driven work. How would you define that? I mean, I'm guessing this isn't like an Oklahoma, but it's or some other thing that's been done before. How would you define like experimental or
experiential? Yeah, it's I have Paul defined me that way, which I think is accurate. But that was his his words, experiential, meaning that I want the actors to feel like they're actually living in the moment. It's not a performance. They're not acting for the audience. They have so much information about their character, about why they're there, what they're doing. It's so personal to them that they really purposefully go through something each night. And that feels very alive to me and interesting to me.
Awesome. And then one of the things that our organization, the Torrance Cultural Arts Foundation, does besides present, shows, is we also try to help encourage young artists who are coming up. We do a couple of different things. We're giving performers the opportunity to perform and sort of mentor and encourage them. And I always like to ask guests on this, what's your what are your words of wisdom to up and coming performers, or not performers, but artists in general, whether they want to be a director, producer, writer, actor?
To listen to the voice inside. Don't think that the answers are outside of you and that you have to conform or perform to meet some expectation that someone else has. Know what those are, but also keep listening to what actually moves you and interests you and inspires you, and stay connected to that at all times, and trust that, trust your gut, trust your intuition. That's really what makes an artist of any kind great, is to have some connection to your own voice and to keep expressing it in some way.
Truer words could not be spoken. I think that's actually a very good way of putting it. It's like I always tell people, be authentic, because if you're not, if the tides change and what you're trying to be isn't in anymore, you're left just empty because you left yourself by the wayside. So I think that's brilliant advice. So I'm just, and I also noticed that your feature, I heard Sarah received an accolade from the Robert Rodriguez Best Indie Film. Tell me about that.
Yeah, that was a real honor, because it was such a labor of love to shoot a feature in 7 days with the resources that we had, and try to make it look, find the locations that reflected the wealth in certain moments in the script. And of course, Robert Rodriguez is famous for that. He does, early on, he did every job on his scripts, on his films, and he just made it happen. So when I received that award from the Bare Bones Film and Music Festival, I flew out, and it may be one of the times I felt the most honored, just because you felt really seen and understood about the effort you actually put into something. And then that film just got distribution, which I'm really excited about, with Good Deed Entertainment, which is a company that I really admire. So
Congratulations.
Thank you. But that's, to sort of be in that process where you feel like you don't have enough resources, and then for it to end that way it's really, really amazing. Yeah.
And it struck me when I saw Robert Rodriguez's name, just because of the subject matter of the effects, and knowing his story of how he went through the clinical trial just to raise the money to shoot Mariachi.
You know what? I forgot about that. That's so interesting. Wow.
I just recently watched his little was it filmmaker school on Amazon, where he does like a series of how to make a low budget film, and it was fascinating. But I've always been an admirer of his, just because of his tenacity to sort of do whatever it took to get the job done. Not that, I mean, yeah, I think you have to hand it to artists who sort of make their way no matter what, and it's just sometimes it's pure tenacity, sometimes it's dumb luck, but God bless the artists.
Yeah, and trusting, like we were talking about before, trusting your vision.
Yeah.
Having something that you have to express. Certainly Robert Rodriguez felt that way. And when directors I admire, when I hear them talking, it's really about expressing. They're not always happy with the results. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not, but they have to somehow tell that story. I think getting in touch with that is really important.
It's like one of my favorite old, I don't know, I think it was, I keep telling people it's Confucius. I don't know who said it, but it was birds sing because they have to, not because they want to. And it's kind of like artists. It's like you have to create. I mean, if I wasn't doing this job, working in the theater, I would be, doing my barista job, but at night, you bet I would be doing something at some theater somewhere, just because I have to.
Yes.
Well, I really appreciate your time. I'm going to encourage everyone to go see The Effect at the Marilyn Monroe Theater in LA. Is it LA or Hollywood, or where is it?
It's in West Hollywood. And thank you. And I think young people will love the play as well. They'll love it.
So that's actually a good question. Is there like any age appropriate things that we should, I mean, what age, or better yet, as somebody always asks me, is it PG or is it R?
Yeah. I guess, I would say maybe 14 and up. It's probably PG-13. I don't know how I would rate it. I mean, I think a lot of people will relate to it, certainly adults, but also I think, college students, high school students will also find themselves in the play.
Great. Well, again, we will keep pushing it, and hopefully we'll get some help fill the seats. But yeah, I encourage everyone to go see it, and I wish you the best, and thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. I hope to see you at the theater. We would love to have Torrance come in to the theater. That would be very exciting for us.
So we'll do what we can.
Okay.
Thank you so much.